Hi everyone, I'm Scylla.
I'm Shannon.
And we're
Normal
Suburban
Suburban
Moms. So I did a couple of short videos, but we haven't done a full length video because we haven't really known.
What to say?
Yeah, we know how we feel. It's finding the right words, honestly. So as everybody in the world by now knows, on this past Wednesday, the 6th of January, there was, to put it bluntly, a terrorist attack on the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. But these weren't Islamic extremists. These were American citizens. These were Trump extremists. And the idea that our own people could attack us like that, I watched in horror as it unfolded, as I know you did too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know
So,
what to say.
so I guess a little bit of a timeline, although it's hard to actually go through the timeline because it was all so insane. And I guess you can kind of wind it back to the 5th, the Tuesday, the runoff election in Georgia. It so happened that Trump did hurt the Republicans. And I think it was a mixture of things, whether it was him being a sore loser and the rhetoric he's been using, trying to make it sound like votes don't count, because really, why are Georgia Republicans going to go vote if they don't believe their vote counts? And then there was also just the fact that there's obviously been a rebuke of Trump nationwide. Yes, I'm aware he got more votes than any sitting president, but he still lost. And other Republicans won, which means that's not a rebuke of the Republican Party as a whole, although after Wednesday maybe we should rethink that. But it's a rebuke of Trump. And so Georgia lost 2 Republican Senate seats to Democrats, which I can honestly say I never thought I would be happy about. And yet here we are. The 20s are a crazy time. And then Wednesday was when Congress was going to meet to certify the election. And we already knew there was going to be some senators and House members that objected to the results, and it was going to be debate. And ultimately, everyone with common sense knew the end result would be Biden being certified as president-elect. And yes, I know Ted Cruz is one of our senators. We're sorry. We didn't vote for him. And I know a lot of people that did are a little embarrassed by that now. I've talked to some, including Republicans that still claim Republican. But I digress. Anyway, so as this certification is going on, suddenly, inexplicably, a mob was able to break into the U.S. Capitol building. Let me say that again. A mob was able to break into the U.S. Capitol building. That just sounds like something from a movie. That doesn't sound like it could actually happen.
Yet here we are. They broke windows and
scaled walls.
Yeah.
Now, why? Why did they break into the U.S. Capitol building? Well, it might
Allegedly.
have something to do with a rally that one Donald J. Trump held earlier, where he mentioned something about fighting for your country lest you lose it because of the rigged election. Don't concede, don't stop fighting.
We're going to march to the Capitol.
I'll be with you. And then
the Republican Party has confirmed that was a lie.
And then there was Giuliani, who... I'm just so sad about what happened to Giuliani. I wanted him to be president at one point in my life, and oh my God, what a disappointment he has been.
He has devolved.
He literally literally called for trial by combat.
This ain't Game of Thrones, y'all.
Tell me this is not inciting violence. Let me break it down. Trump is a cult leader. He knows how to dog whistle. He's not going to straight up say, go attack the Capitol. But if you listen to what he said, he had all the key words. Fight. He victimized his crowd. He made them feel like they were going to lose their livelihood if they didn't fight back.
They're being persecuted.
Persecution complex. Us versus them.
Very black and white thinking.
It's all there. If you don't see it, you are probably in the cult. And I've tried really hard, in spite of my dislike for Trump, to avoid straight up calling out his supporters, because a lot of people I love very deeply support Trump. But the time for worrying about political correctness and walking on eggshells to not offend the Trump supporters ended when they turned treasonous.
Done.
And to be clear, I am not saying all Trump supporters are treasonous. I think you are in a cult, and I think you need to really try to step out and look at it. I do, however, think every single person in that Capitol building is treasonous and should be tried for treason, along with Rudy Giuliani, Donald J. Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump.
And not just the people that got into the Capitol, also people that were beating police officers with flagpoles outside the Capitol. Yeah, I saw that earlier today.
The fact that they actually hung nooses and walked through the Capitol chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," that's some of the most chilling footage I've ever seen in my life. And I watched 9/11 happen live.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, 5 people ended up losing their lives. Oh, well, if you count the one that ended up killing himself, 6. 4 protesters lost their lives. 1 cop was murdered. And news came out today that there was another cop that was there that ended up committing suicide. We don't know the reasons behind it, but suffice to say, it's not a stretch to say that it had something to do with something that went down at the Capitol. But even putting that 6th one aside, 5 people lost their lives at the Capitol. 1 being a police officer. He was murdered. 40-year-old officer was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher to the point of having a stroke. All the while, Trump sat in the Oval Office watching in glee, although wondering why his supporters looked so low class. Guess what, Bubba? That's the kind of people you attract. That's the kind of people that are willing to do your bidding to that level. Facebook and Instagram ended up banning him because he can't shut his frickin' mouth. And he couldn't stop inciting violence. He got a 12-hour ban on Twitter initially. And then he had to go out and tweet, and I quote, "The 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form." That led to him getting a permaban from Twitter, and
it's about time.
Yeah, and newsflash, it's also not breaking the First Amendment. You don't have a right to a platform. You don't have a right to force a private company to give you a platform. You don't even have the right to an internet platform. Free speech is this: the government shall not hinder your speech. They shall not make laws. But you know where free speech stops? When you start inciting violence. And to be clear, I am one of the biggest free speech advocates you'll ever meet, because I'm one of the few that actually believes it goes both ways, whether you agree or not. So, for example, if we're walking down the street holding hands and somebody yells at us, "effing dykes," I find that distasteful and hateful, but they are within their rights to do it. I would simply glare at them and walk away. That's their free speech. However, if somebody says, "I'm going to kill you, effing dykes," now they no longer have free speech. They are threatening violence. At the same time, if someone says, "Look over there, you should go kill those effing dykes," they are inciting violence, not free speech. See the difference there? They use the same slur in all three scenarios. In one, we walk away thinking they're trash, but not bothering with them otherwise. That is their free speech. In the other two scenarios, they're either threatening to commit or inciting violence against us. That's where free speech ends.
That's where it becomes a crime.
Mm-hmm. So, no, I'm not only for speech I agree with, I'm for everybody having free speech until you start inciting violence, and that is where we're at. And that's government free speech. Twitter's not obligated to give anybody a platform. If they wanted to ban me tomorrow for no good reason, they're a private company. They're within their rights to do so. At the same time, I know that at the moment that we're recording this, they're talking about Parler going down because nobody wants to host them anymore. Nobody has to. Nobody has to give them a platform. They're private companies. And for all of you Trumplicans, and yes, I'm calling you Trumplicans. I got that from Chris Cuomo. And I refuse to refer to you as Republicans because that's what I was.
Yeah, you're not Republicans.
That's what I was. You're not that. Any Republican that wants a private company to be forced by the government to allow people on their platform, that sounds awfully
fascist.
Indeed it does. But isn't that everything you claim to be against? But if you actually look at what Trump has done, he is a fascist.
Oh no, that's Antifa. They're anti-fascist.
Antifa's a whole nother thing that we're going to touch on in a second. Because there's been some of that too. Trump is a fascist, make no mistake. He checks all the boxes. I always wondered when I was in school how people could blindly follow Hitler. How did anybody think that was okay? Now I know. It wasn't really that hard. But since you mentioned Antifa, so even though we have video of the maggots / Trumplicans attacking the Capitol, because they are also anti-maskers and posted their crimes to social media, and we know who they are.
Real smart there, Bubba.
We are still having conspiracy theorists like Kevin Sorbo push out that it was really Antifa. They were, anybody can buy a flag. It was Antifa. They made themselves look like Trump supporters. Give me a break. This wasn't Antifa. And no, I'm not about to go and defend Antifa, because I got issues with them too. But one, Antifa is a loose organization at best. It's not highly organized. I'm not going to say they don't exist like a lot of mainstream media does, because they do. Just not in the way that the far right tries to say they do. But Antifa is the thing, and Antifa does commit violence, and Antifa did a lot of what they did over the summer. And that wasn't right, and they were wrong, and those that committed those acts should be arrested. I watched in horror as, on my local news, as the nearest city to us had fires and looting, and it was awful. So, no, I'm not going to defend Antifa. But I'm also not going to do whataboutisms. Because while looting somebody's private property is not okay, I'm not defending it. But if you're going to scale crimes, breaking and entering to somebody's shop, or breaching the Capitol with the intent of killing the vice president.
I think the Whiteys won. I'm sorry, and I can say that because I'm Whitey and I'm from Georgia. I'm Southern, so I know the kind of people that believe this stuff.
Which is a whole nother element of this.
Let's just say they're easily led.
This, one thing that's been brought up a lot in the news is that people were waving Confederate flags inside the Capitol building. And also that they were taking down American flags and raising Trump flags. And it was in this moment that I had an epiphany that really caught me off guard and hurt. You see, here's something that I don't think people up north realize. In the South, a lot of us are taught to respect the Confederate flag and what it stands for. To us, it really was about Southern pride. We really did revere Jefferson Davis and General Lee. And we grew up with that mindset. We never looked at it as racist. When everyone was trying to ban the Confederate flag, we didn't get it. How is that racist?
And I know some people are taught to be racist, We were both taught not to be.
But we were still taught Southern pride.
Right.
And so we never looked at the flag in that way. We never looked at it as anything but being Southern pride. But in that moment, when I saw the Confederate flag in the same environment as I saw people taking down the American flag and raising a Trump flag, it was then that I realized Jefferson Davis and General Lee were no different than the people that were attacking the Capitol. They were traitors to their country. They committed treason. And the Confederate flag is a symbol of that treason. And that hit us both like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
It dismantled everything we believed about the South. And so it's been a lot to process on a lot of different levels. I feel like I've been doing most of the talking here.
You do. Usually. No, it's fine though. Yeah, it really hurt. But then like I mean, of course I did connect the Confederate flag with slavery because there was slavery, then there was the Civil War, and then there wasn't slavery.
But we always were taught it was such a small part of the war that wasn't really what the whole thing was about.
But I think in seeing those people, I mean, they were all one color.
And it was not lost on us, even me, who is more right of center, that the maggots were being treated a whole lot differently than the Black Lives Matter protesters were in Lafayette Square.
And, logically I knew that. I knew that was true. I know that there is disproportionate police brutality against people of color. I know that. But knowing it and seeing it are two different things. And everything that I had honestly romanticized about the antebellum period and the Civil War is completely wrong. And it's like, I don't even know what to say. Like,
it changes your whole perspective on everything you were taught growing up.
Because I love the South, but I've always been very patriotic. I love my country. I would not want to leave my country unless I had to for safety. But, I'm proud to be a Southerner too. And, just seeing that and not only seeing the Confederate flag in the Capitol building, but seeing the American flag tossed on the ground and the Trump flag put up at the Capitol building, I can't even describe it.
And I'm a Texan, born and raised. If you ask most Texans, we're Texans first, Americans second. That's just the way we roll in the state. We were our own nation for a while. But, that being said, for as much as we love Texas, we also love our country. And two things happened. One, we saw our country under attack by its own. But two, we also saw someone claiming to represent us as Texans betray his country and by extension his state. So it was hard to see. There is some chatter that Pence is considering the Second Amendment. I don't think he's going to go through with it.
25th.
Thank you. Not Second Amendment. That's
a whole other thing. Yeah.
That's what...
Which, let me just say, yes, I'm liberal. But yes, I love the Constitution, and I am a supporter of the Second Amendment.
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
But that's another video.
And being right of center, I've always been very pro-Second Amendment. But yes, that is another video.
Being a Georgia girl, I've always been pro-Second Amendment.
No, I looked down at my phone because I have some notes because so much has happened. I didn't want to forget anything. And
it's a lot.
I have 25th written down, but I only saw the 2 out of the corner of my eye. And
it happens.
Anyway, so Pence is considering the 25th Amendment, but I don't think he's going to use it because I think he's going to hold it over Trump's head to try to keep him in line for the rest of the term.
Try to ensure good behavior.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we know that's why he made his hostage video. And yes, that's what we're calling the one where he actually condemned the rioters because he looked like a hostage. And by all accounts, he was blackmailed by his cabinet into making that video and regrets it.
He let that sink in for a minute. He regrets condemning the violence perpetrated by his base, who were committing sedition at the least. But I think treason.
Absolutely. It is thought that the House is going to introduce a second articles of impeachment tomorrow, which would be Monday. At first, I didn't know if that was a good idea or not. Why rile them up, the base up, because he's only got another week or so in office. And so you're not going to get it to a Senate trial before he's out of office. But then I looked into it deeper and realized that it's more than just removing him from office. It prevents him from running for federal office again if he's convicted, even after his term's up. It also takes away other rights that most ex-presidents have, like Secret Service and pension and things like that. So after learning that aspect of it, I am 100% in favor of moving forward with impeachment because that might be the only sort of consequence he gets. Not to mention it would save the country from ever risking going through a second term of Trump. Yeah. Because I don't know if we could come back from that. So Trump is also not attending Joe Biden's inauguration, which at this point Joe Biden is just as happy about, and I don't blame him. Pence, who is evidently the grown-up in the room at the moment, will be there. And I just am still kind of in shock about this entire thing. The fact that we're talking about this in the United States of America. China and Russia are literally laughing at us. Other countries are dumbfounded. We're supposed to be the example of democracy. And now we're a mockery.
Mm-hmm. Because our own people attacked us. Our own citizens.
Yeah, not an Islamic extremist.
People that claim to put America first. They claim to be patriots. And I'm sure that somewhere they really believe that they are, but they're misguided.
They're in a cult. Telltale made a really good video about the Trumpists being a cult. I'll link it in the description below because it's definitely worth a watch. And he really breaks it down with the bite model different kinds of cults and where Trumpism falls in all of that.
And he studied cults way longer than us.
Yeah, he breaks it down and explains it way better than we ever could. He's studied cults and is very well versed in the topic. So, yeah, I'll link that below. Give it a watch. It's definitely worth a watch. As far as where we go from here, I really don't know. Initially, when all of this was happening, I was scared. I'm not scared anymore. Not really. I mean, not for my own safety anyway.
I was scared at first. And then I was sad.
Yes, I'm still very sad.
I'm still sad, but I'm also angry.
Oh, I'm furious. On so many different levels. On so many levels. And the fact that there's still like 45% of Republicans that think this whole thing was justified and support Trump is beyond me. And there's even Republicans that are claiming to support Trump and not see that he incited this. Trump didn't do this. He didn't say that. You don't have to actually give exact instructions to incite violence.
He knows how to communicate with his base. He knows that they look for clues of what he wants them to do.
He knew what he was doing. And a very dear friend of mine does not support what happened at the Capitol, but does support Trump still and thinks Trump had nothing to do with this and basically recites all of Trump's talking points. And it hurts because even the way we talk, I hear this person speak in we's and us, and there's no individual, here's what I think, it's we and us. Mm-hmm. It's a cult identity, to be quite honest. And it's scary. I have known this person for like 22 years now, since we were in school together. And to see this person fall into this is really actually quite painful. It's somebody that I never thought would fall for something like this. So, yeah, this has affected me on a lot of different levels as an American, as a Texan, as a Southerner, personally. It's just been a lot.
Yeah.
So, at this point, we'll just have to see what the next week or so brings and hope we can get through it without anything else. I know Trump is supposed to go to South Texas to show off his border wall. And to be clear, there seems to be some confusion on that. Trump is going to Alamo, Texas. That's a town in the Rio Grande Valley. Some outlets were reporting he's going to the Alamo, as in the building where the Battle of the Alamo happened. That's actually in San Antonio, Texas, which is like 4 hours north of Alamo, Texas.
Yeah.
I know this because I grew up in a town like 15 minutes from Alamo. In the Rio Grande Valley, that is my home. That is where I'm from. That's where my Mexican heritage comes from, is that area of North Mexico, South Texas. And so for Trump to go to the Rio Grande Valley for what is essentially a photo op, after the chaos he has caused and the shame that he's brought on this country and by association with Ted Cruz, my state, I'm rather pissed about the whole thing. So I'm not looking forward to that. And I don't think he knows what he's doing.
No.
Because as I said, that's where my Mexican heritage comes from. And I know, not all, but I know a lot of other Mexicans, Mexican Americans, Latinos, Latinas, pick your label, that are actually quite perturbed about the wall and the way Trump speaks about us and our heritage. And I may be not one of the brown ones, but I'm still one of them. So, yeah. There's a lot of people back in my hometown that it's going to be interesting.
To say the least. And a lot of them are identify as Democrats.
It is a very heavily Democrat area, mostly because they don't like being seen as the other. You know, when you label somebody as the other, they tend to not support you. I kind of think me being one of the white ones is why I was a Republican for so long, because I always passed as white.
Was a Republican? Have I converted you to the dark side?
I'm not a Democrat.
We have cookies.
No. I have issues with Democrats. They just, unfortunately, at the moment, pale in comparison to what my own former party has done.
I have issues with Democrats too, but they most closely align to my values. So
I'll say this. When Obama was elected, I thought that was the worst thing ever.
I thought it was fantastic.
I know.
Although I was this close to voting for McCain. I was. And then he picked Palin.
Yeah, he knew that was a mistake too.
But I was psyched about that. And then she spoke.
Here's the thing. I did not like Obama as a president. He actually seems like a pretty cool guy as an individual and has integrity and stuff. Just don't like him as a president. Did not agree with a lot of his policies. Was way further right at the time, and so I actually kind of, I'm ashamed to admit, I bought into the birther conspiracy and thought he was going to be as bad as the Antichrist, and
but now she's smarter than that, at least.
I believed all that for a while. And then I saw he served 2 terms and the country didn't come to an end. Which is why I was willing to give Trump a chance. I never thought he could possibly be worse than Obama, and he actually makes me miss Obama.
He makes me miss W, and I was not a fan of W.
I loved W's first term. His second term, I will admit, was an unmitigated disaster.
Train wreck.
But W's first term, I miss first term W, but that's for another time. Anyway, this video is getting really long because
it's just a lot.
It's just a lot. And you don't really know how to wrap it up, because where do you go from here? How do you end something like this?
See you next disaster. I mean, yeah.
I guess the takeaway here is just don't let politics divide us. Talk to each other, listen to each other. Don't shoot each other down just because of your ideas. Actually listen to one another.
And remember, if you're having a debate or conversation, it's okay to attack ideas or disagree with ideas. It's not okay to attack people.
Absolutely.
So if you're arguing ideas and ideals, counter those, attack those, but not the person.
And I think that's the perfect way to end this. If you want to follow us on Twitter, continue the conversation, there's our Twitter handles. Aside from that, like, share, subscribe, all this obligatory stuff we have to say in every YouTube video to hope we can grow the channel.
That's my bell ringing. Ring the bell.
And this was a really heavy video, so we'll be back tomorrow with something that is hopefully a little more lighthearted, because this week has just been really heavy for everybody. So until then, we'll be seeing you.